Hello and welcome to Natasha Explains It All. Today's episode is going to be about getting out the vote. Yesterday was National Voter Registration Day, which is now a thing because President Biden issued a proclamation declaring yesterday, September 17th, as National Voter Registration Day, with the idea of, encouraging people to get registered to vote if they are not already registered to vote, and if you are registered to vote, to make sure to double check your voter registration status and to get out there and vote in November, because the election is going to come down to voter turnout. And while a lot of the attention has been on the presidential race, which is extremely important, there are many other races that are also very important in November. Other federal races, state races, and local races. So today's episode is I wanted to share a couple of ways that you can get involved in helping to get out the vote, encouraging others to vote in November. So first and foremost, for yourself, make sure to check your voter registration status. Make sure that you are registered to vote. Make sure that if you want to get an absentee ballot to be able to vote by mail, that you have that. And make sure you know your polling location, if you're going to be going in person, all those details. And you can look all of that information up on vote.org. That's vote.org. So check your voter registration because honestly, very unfortunately, there have been many states, those led by Republican governors, Republican secretaries of state, Republican legislatures, that have been removing many people, hundreds of thousands, millions of people off of voter registration rolls and not notifying people of it. And so you may have been removed from the voter registration roll and not been notified of it, depending on where you live in the country. And so please check to make sure that you are still registered to vote. And also check that you are registered for the type of voting that you want to do. I have mentioned in a prior episode about how in Florida, for example, Republicans changed the law multiple times to take people off of vote by mail every 2 years without notifying people. So people are signed up to vote by mail and receive a ballot in the mail, but then every 2 years they're getting removed from that list without being notified of it. And so there are many people who are expecting to receive a ballot in the mail who won't because the state didn't notify them of that. And that's a Governor DeSantis move. It's a voter suppression tactic. All of these are voter suppression tactics, of removing people from the rolls for various nebulous and nefarious reasons, and then not notifying people so that they have time to correct in time for the election. So anyway, first point of order is register to vote if you haven't. And if you are registered to vote, double check your voter registration status. You can look at vote.org or just search for your county, looking up the registrar office of your county and finding out what your status is. Oftentimes they have a phone number where you can call them, or you can just look it up by entering your address on their website. So do that first and foremost. Now, going into a couple of ways to get out the vote. The first, I want to give everyone a phone number to add to their contacts for election day, or whatever day that you happen to go and vote. If you do your voting in person, or if you're going to drop off your ballot, for example, there is a National Election Protection Hotline that you can call if you are impeded from voting in any way. If you get to a polling location and there are people there that are trying to block you from voting, if they're intimidating voters, God forbid, if there are people that are showing up with weapons and other things like that, there is an election protection hotline you can call, which is 1-866-687-8683 to report those voter intimidation and harassment instances. Again, the Election Protection Hotline, this is on the vote.org website. It's 1-866-687-8683. And unfortunately, with Trump and Vance inciting so much violence and spreading so many racist and xenophobic lies and encouraging violence among their supporters, there is a risk that there is going to be voter intimidation, voter harassment at the polls, and them constantly talking about lying about the election being rigged and their intimidation of poll workers and other county officials. There is a real risk of those things. And so I want people to know that there is actually a place you can call if you witness any of that, if you observe any of that, and hopefully don't actually have to experience it firsthand. But there are resources out there. So that is the National Election Protection Hotline. So check your voter registration status, add the Election Protection Hotline as a contact into your phone. And then in terms of some ways of helping to get out the vote for people in your networks, the first one I want to mention is one that is from Vote Save America. Vote Save America has an Empower Get Out the Vote initiative that focuses on getting out the vote in swing states. And swing states are states that, as the name implies, it's pretty unclear which way they're going to go in terms of the presidential race. There are states that have gone back and forth between voting for Republican and Democratic candidates. And so Vote Save America has launched a Get Out the Vote campaign called Empower GOTV, Get Out the Vote. And you can earn money. They list it as $250 plus by encouraging your friends and family to vote in these designated swing states. And those states are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, North Carolina, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So I'll put the link in the show notes, but check that out if you live in any of the states that I mentioned, or if you have friends or family that live in those states, you can send them this link and see if they're interested in joining. They can get paid to help get out the vote to other people that they know in their home states. So that is the Empower Get Out the Vote by Vote Save America. You can become a community mobilizer, is what they call it, and get paid for it to turn out the vote in swing states. The next opportunity I want to share is state specific. This is about North Carolina. North Carolina, if you are in North Carolina and you are a registered voter, you can request an absentee ballot until October 29th so that you can vote by mail. And it is proven over and over again that voters who have the option to vote by mail are much more likely to vote, which makes a lot of sense, right? Like, it's much easier to be able to just fill out a ballot at home and then drop it in the mail rather than having to go to a physical location on election day, or if where you live offers early voting. So absentee ballot, mail-in ballot is a great idea. So if you live in North Carolina, you can request that up until October 29th. And those absentee ballots are going to start being mailed out next week. And to get information on how to request your absentee ballot, you can go to ncsbe.gov, and that stands for North Carolina State Board of Elections, so ncsbe.gov. And any of the websites that I referred to in today's episode, I will include in the show notes. Now, North Carolina has been going through a interesting / disturbing voting issue recently, in that, as many of you may know, RFK Jr. recently dropped out of the presidential race and then endorsed Trump. However, he dropped out of the race so late that some states, including North Carolina, had already printed millions of ballots with his name on the ballot. Now, since RFK wants Trump to win, right? He endorsed Trump. He wants Trump to win. He doesn't want his name to continue to appear on ballots because he thinks that's going to siphon votes away from Trump, right? Because people might still select him as their candidate of choice, even though he's no longer running. So that will basically be a useless vote, but it's a vote that Trump could have had instead, because those voting for RFK would be certainly far more likely to be voting for Trump than for Harris, let's be real. And so RFK sued about it and sued the state of North Carolina to have his name removed from the ballot as a way to boost voter turnout for Trump. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court of North Carolina agreed. And so even though the state of North Carolina had already printed like millions of ballots with his name on it, the state Supreme Court ordered those ballots, to be destroyed and new ones printed without RFK on them. So then there was all this concern that they weren't actually going to be able to print them in time and get them out to people who have requested absentee ballots on time, because absentee ballots go not only to people who are stateside who request an absentee ballot, but it's also military personnel who are abroad, citizens who live abroad, like they also get absentee ballots. And so it seems like they're going to be able to meet the deadlines now, but there's definitely a lot of talk about that being, a voter suppression tactic, certainly for certain voters, and causing complications so close up to the election date. But it seems like it's getting resolved, and so this is the time now to request your absentee ballot. If you're a voter in North Carolina and you would like to vote absentee, meaning that you would receive a ballot in the mail that you can fill out and then just return by mail or drop off at, a designated voter drop-off point. Okay, so checkvote.org. Then there's the Empower GOTV through Vote Save America, when you can get paid to get out the vote in swing states. North Carolina, if you're a North Carolina resident, please check your voter status and sign up for an absentee ballot if that would be a good fit for you. And then I also wanted to mention Indivisible has an initiative called Neighbor to Neighbor. And this is a very simple get out the vote tool as well, that is designed like the Empower GOTV to help you connect to people that you're already connected to and encourage them to vote and discuss issues. So with Neighbor to Neighbor by Indivisible, they will give you 10 neighbors, 10 people that live in your area to go and talk to. So that is an in-person one. And they give you a script. They tell you everything you need to do. They train you. And that is proven to help boost voter turnout. And I'm going to just quickly read what Indivisible's description of the Neighbor to Neighbor program is. So here we go. Quote, as a neighbor to neighbor volunteer, instead of being given a long list of strangers, you'll get a short list of your own neighbors, along with a simple script, some best practices, and a printable handout. There's no app to download, and you can have these conversations on your own time. When you're done, just sign up to receive the next 10 closest doors. Close quote. So check that out if that sounds interesting to you, if you'd like to have some in-person conversations, again, with people that are in your area and like all the script and everything is taken care of for you. And that initiative is in certain states as well, so you'll want to visit that website, which I will include in the show notes, and see if you are in one of the target states. But you can also just Google Neighbor to Neighbor Initiative Indivisible. And the last one is one I've mentioned many times before, which is Postcards to Voters, which is one that I love and regularly volunteer with, that picks campaigns throughout the country at all levels, so local, state, and federal, to support Democratic candidates to boost voter turnout in races where the difference in turnout will make a difference in the outcome of the election. And it's targeted directly at already registered Democratic voters to encourage them to vote. So to boost voter turnout among already registered Democrats. And they give you the scripts. You just need to provide your own postcards and stamps. They give you the message. You can make it art project and make it colorful, or just, write, in black or blue ink. with the messages that they provide for you. And they have a really fun online community if you're into social media, because people regularly post their postcards and their designs and encourage each other. And it's something you can do with friends, and family as well. So I always think that that's a fun one. And there's campaigns available at all times. So, and then the last thing, which isn't, I wouldn't say directly a get out the vote resource, but I've learned about some of these resources through this listserv, and also it has tons of information about elections and electoral rights and what's happening across the country as we approach this election. And that is the Democracy Docket. Democracy Docket is just a newsletter that you can sign up for, and I will include the link to that as well. And they have, Democracy Docket has a daily docket newsletter, if you'd like, that gives you the top news about what is happening regarding voting rights across the country. So it's a great way to stay informed on this particular topic if it is of interest to you. And again, it's called Democracy Docket. So that's a way of staying informed and as a way of sharing information with others as well about what is going on as we approach this election. So that's it for today. Just a quick episode to share some of the ways that I have come across in helping to boost voter turnout, which is going to be so important because the November election at all levels is going to come down to who shows up. So I hope you will show up. I hope the people in your life will show up, and that you can help encourage them to do so by engaging in one or more of these options and sharing them out with other people who may be interested as well. And as we approach the election, I'm hoping to do some additional episodes about other races and ballot initiatives, including Prop 36 here in California, which is a crime bill. Vote no, please. I'll be doing a whole episode about that to provide more information. So if there are any particular requests for other episodes about the November election, please let me know. You can get in touch with me. And if you've been enjoying this podcast, I really appreciate rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to. It's really helpful to getting the word out about the podcast. And so with that in mind, check out your voter registration status, vote.org. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.